So this is about financial empowerment. Is that hopefully what you signed up for? You weren't expecting Dr. Ruth? Good. Shoo. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what empowerment is and what gets in the way of empowerment, and then we'll tie it together with finances. So money conversations typically make people nervous, am I right? Yeah. Most people don't talk much about money personally. I may talk about it generically. In some families, it's taboo to speak about money, right? My dad would never allow us to ask any questions about our parents' finances. So it can often be a very private conversation. So this is really about the empowerment piece of finances, not about the details. So you all don't have to give me a credit report or share any personal information about your own financial status. So let me define what empowerment is first. So there's generic empowerment, which I'm going to talk a little bit about. And the definition of that is that you are the creator of your own experience. So to be empowered means that the external world is not in control. You are the creator of that experience. Financial empowerment's definition is that you have the knowledge, the tools, the resources to be able to manage your financial life. So to be empowered, you need those things. Does that make sense? Okay. So kind of keep those two in balance, because I'm going to talk about how they come together. Cartman, anybody that's studied psychology and is probably older than 30, which would leave out most of you, there was a psychologist by the name of Cartman years ago who said there's a role that people play in their life that keeps them from being empowered, and it takes three faces. So the first face is the victim face. Do we feel victimized by our money situation? And if that was a voice, it would sound like this: I can't save money, I can't make any more money, I don't have any ideas about money, money troubles me. That would sound like the victim voice. When people have played that role or had that role, it's different than victimization. So victimization means some circumstance has you trapped, right? And that's real. Victim means a role we're playing. People can be victimized and not act like victims, right? So the other role we play, we get tired of victim, so we move around the triangle, and we might next go to persecutor. So we get tired of feeling like a victim, so we go start persecuting the people that we feel are in charge. In money, that would sound like this: it's your fault I don't have more money, you're the one in the family who spends too much money, you don't ask me before you blah, 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 the bank, blah, 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 the financial crisis, the recession, right? So that victim voice goes out and starts to blame and become a persecutor voice. When the persecutor gets tired, it moves to the final or third role called rescuer. Now, any of you have children or family members that might need help, right? So rescuing is you have a family member who doesn't have a job, notoriously spends money they don't have by borrowing it from you, and we want to rescue them, right? So we always come in with a loan, or we come in with a little extra cash, or we come in with an idea. And that is the rescuer role. And Cartman said, we just go around that triangle over and over. We try to rescuing, we feel like a victim again. No one listens to me. They didn't take my advice. They never paid me back. Oh, now I'm in the victim role. And we stay there for a while. So that's sort of what we called the dreaded drama triangle. So if you look around your life, you probably see people there. And we all are there from time to time, right? We feel like, I think the recession was a great chance for us to feel like victims because banks, financial institutions did some not so nice things, right? So how do you shift to empowerment? What does the empowerment triangle look like? That's a different triangle. And he flipped it upside down. The author of this work's name is Daniel Emerald, and he wrote a book called The Empowerment Dynamic. And he said the way out is to shift those roles to, rather than a victim, be a creator, right? So empowerment means to be the creator of your circumstance. And that's that feeling of confidence, I can manage my money, I can understand money, I can succeed with finances. That's the creator role. You may have a challenger to that, right? So a challenge would be a tough situation, an unexpected expense. You know, the car dies. Weren't planning on buying a new car for a couple of years. We could consider that to throw us in the victim role, or we could consider that a challenge. Oh, how am I going to solve this dilemma as a creator, not as the victim who was sort of stuck with the bad car? How do I solve this issue? And then that can shift by having a coach. So we're talking about financial coaching here at TMCC for the classified staff. I'm one of those coaches that will be back on April 5th to sort of play that role. And the coach is your catalyst. They don't solve the problem. They don't advise. They don't suggest. They don't say, oh, you should talk to Edward Jones. The coach is the catalyst for the creator to take on whatever's next for them. So the way you know you're in empowerment is you're in the triangle with the creator, challenger, catalyst. And the way you know you're in the drama triangle is when you feel like a victim, or you're persecuting someone or rescuing someone, or they're persecuting you or rescuing you. Does that make sense? So those are kind of how we tell the difference. Now, how do we shift from one to the other? The victim triangle focuses on problems. Many people like to be problem solvers because it feels good to be a problem solver. Most of us are trained in good problem solving skills. We had a little problem this morning. We came in, we needed chairs, we needed this, that, or the other, right? That can be a problem that someone else should have solved, or that can be a challenge for how do we get it to work out. So when you're focused on a problem, you're right at the risk of falling into that victim triangle, lack of empowerment. When you're vision-based or outcome-based, you're in the empowerment triangle. What do I want to have versus what do I not want to have? So sometimes when I ask people, what do you want around money? They'll say, well, I don't want to have any more credit card debt. I don't want to have a bad credit report. I don't want, that's more tempting to go victim-wise. When they say, I want this much money in savings. I want to be debt-free in 5 years. I want to have fewer credit cards, more savings. That's outcome or vision focused. So the shift from the victim triangle, moment to moment, you can be in the victim triangle for 5 minutes and decide to shift, right? You can be in there for a whole day, decide to shift. You can be in there for a period of time. Last year was a bad year, right? The way you shift is to notice where your attention is. So I'm going to give you a little model. If I had a flip chart, I would draw it, but you all have pens, so you can draw it. I'm going to talk you through it on how you draw it. So I want you to make a circle, and I want you to put an F in the circle, and that stands for focus. So this is called the FISBE, the F-I-S-B-E. So the first is the F. Wherever your focus is going to create your inner state. So take the F, draw an arrow towards either direction, actually going clockwise. And draw another circle and put an IS in there. That stands for inner state. So wherever you focus, your inner state will follow. So if we focus on a problem, how do we feel inside?
Good.
If you're focused on a problem, does that feel good?
No.
It might feel good to you.
It feels heavy on your shoulders.
Could feel heavy. What kinds of responses do we have when somebody comes to us and says, you have a problem with this? Stress, anxiety, right? So focus will determine inner state. It'll bring those feelings of anxiety and worry, right? On the other hand, if we focus on possibilities, our inner state will feel more hopeful, perhaps, or more energetic, right? Okay, so going clockwise, draw another arrow with another circle. So there's going to be 3 circles. Focus, inner state. The last circle, there's a B in it, or a BE in it, for FISB. And that stands for behavior. So where behavior comes from depends on our inner state, and where our inner state comes from depends on what we focus. Does that make sense? Okay. So it's attention and intention and results. I'm into acronyms today. AIR. Attention, intention, results. So now we're going to do a little example of that. Who's willing to say where they would like to be more empowered around money? Not a specific example, but like where would you like to feel more of that in your life?
Savings.
Around savings, okay, great. Good place to start. Anybody else?
Debt-free.
Debt-free, okay, good.
I'm debt-free, I can say.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, that's another way to look at it, right? If you're debt-free, you could have savings. We usually encourage people to save even if they have to do them simultaneously. Sometimes when people give away everything to debt-free and they don't have any savings, it's a little vulnerable. If they have a little bit of savings, it feels good while you're paying down the debt, okay? So if you focus on, debt-free is a good example. Because you could say, I need to get out of debt, and that would sound more like a problem. I need to get out of debt would be like this. Debt-free is a little more like this. That feels really good, not to owe anybody any money would feel good, right? So that's your focus. What kind of inner state do you feel when you think about being debt-free? Imagining yourself debt-free, how does that feel? Pardon?
Relieved.
A relief, okay. And when you have relief, what do you have more of?
Happiness.
More, yeah, you feel better, right? Lighthearted, yeah, comfortable, safe, that security starts to kick in, right? All right, so that's your inner state. So focusing on debt-free brings the hope and relief. And then what kind of behaviors are going to come from that?
Celebration.
Party! Gonna have a party. More energy. Yeah. So when you're faced with a choice, this is not one that I'm really good at, but think of something you like to buy, that you like to shop for. And so you walk past a great display of shoes. You've got some nice boots. Shoes, purses. That's my weakness. I got my new spring purse out today. And I'm thinking about, I'd really like that. Now, if I focus on the problem of debt-free and I feel heavy, I'm going to probably buy the purse, right? Because I want to feel that relief. I want to feel better. If I'm focused on how great it's going to be not to owe any more money, that's going to make that choice easier for me, right? I'm going to have an easier time walking away because I focused on something positive than if I focused on, oh, shoot, it's not happening. I need a break. I need a reward. I'm going to reward myself and buy that purse on my credit card. Okay? So this little Frisbee, along with the empowerment triangle, is a really good tool for managing that feeling of empowerment. Outcome versus problem, focus, noticing your inner state, how do you feel about that, and then watching your behavior. Does that make sense? Simple little tools, really fun to implement. This is the guy, he wrote a book about empowerment in general, but just in case you're book people, I am on a college campus. It's called The Power of TED, which stands for the Empowerment Dynamic. Obviously, not a big fat book to read, but it's a really nice little reference book for how do you stay in empowerment. One of the things we need to know is what gets in our way of empowerment. So if I asked you what triggers you around money, what would you say?
What do you mean, what triggers?
What about money? What can grab you about money and make you concerned or worried or frustrated, or that's a trigger?
Like sale prices?
Sale prices, yeah. Okay, and then you want to do what when you see those sale prices?
Spend money because you feel like you're saving.
You're saving money. Okay, great. No, that's cute, isn't it, right? Oh, I'll save more money by buying this on sale. That's kind of cute. When we step out of the trigger of the sale price, seeing something on sale, we notice that there's an oxymoron in there somewhere, right? Oh, I could save by spending less. What's wrong with that picture? Okay. What else triggers you? Like for me, if my husband tells me that he's worried about something with regard to money, that will trigger me. So someone I care about being concerned about money, I'll start to go. I'm not thinking about it. I'm not worried about it, but he'll say something, and then I'll go, oh no. Or something will happen to a family member that involves finances, and then I'll be like, oh, should we help them out? And that's a point where we can go either way with the triangle, right? We can fall into victim ourselves and seeing them as victims, or we can be more empowered to be the creator. Those are like pivotal points. So the good thing about knowing what your triggers are is you can anticipate them. So when you know it's sale time, which I guess nowadays every day is a sale day for somebody, right? I go to Macy's. There's sales every day at Macy's. There's no longer the spring sale and the summer sale, Christmas. Everything's on sale. But you can then know what could take you off track, right? If you know that somebody else's crisis can take you off track, you can plan for it. You can do a little anticipation about your empowerment rather than being caught unawares. So it's all about understanding how does money work for us? And what is it that we like about it, and what is it that we don't? I find that people don't like those conversations very much. They don't really think about money. They don't want to think about it. Am I right? They'd like to have it rather than not have it. People will say, right now we have that sweepstake thing that goes on, and I notice there's ads on TV that you can win $7,000 a week for the rest of your life. Have you been watching that one?
And if you die, you get to give it to your kid.
And then you even get it after you're dead for whoever's left behind, right? Those kinds of conversations people will like to have. We live in a center where winning is an option, right? People think, oh, if I could just go to the casino and, maybe I could get up a few hundred, right? But thinking about and managing our money isn't everybody's favorite conversation. And here's what I know about empowering yourself financially with the tools, knowledge, and resources is you have to know where you're starting. You have to have a really good handle on how it looks right now for you. And that's your second handout, which is a takeaway. We're not going to do the handout while I'm sitting here chatting with you. But it helps you think through, what does money mean to you? How do you feel about it? What's your experience with it? Because if you don't know where you are, it's hard to know where you're going. So one of the things that Dr. Emerald talks about in here is something called creative tension, holding creative tension, which means you know where you are currently and you know where you want to go, and it's like a rubber band. You hold it very much in perspective. If you drop what you want, you drop this end of the rubber band, then you're not going to achieve your goals. If you don't know where you are, you don't want to look at it, you don't want to know blah, 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 that end of the rubber band's going to drop. And then you're not going to know how to get where you need to go. So it's a matter of holding the two just at the right tension, not pulling too hard on one end and the other, that helps you know how to manage money. And the starting point is knowing where you are and knowing how you feel about it. Knowing what money means to you. What are the learnings that came from your family about money? Because sometimes we have a carryover, right, of where we first learned about money. So understanding that and holding that tension will help empower you. Then you find the people and resources to help you. It's part of what our coaching program is all about. How do you find the tools and resources to help you get there faster? And how do you hold yourself accountable? So are you guys good at setting goals?
Yeah, except for when it comes to money.
You're good with every other goal, just not the money goal. Okay, well, you came to the right session anyway, right? You are? Are you good with money goals?
Actually, no, not so much.
You're good with other goals. Yeah. So it's kind of the New Year's Eve resolution, the New Year's resolution syndrome. Right. So there's a good way to set goals, and then there's a way that drags us down. So the first thing about the goal is you have to really want it. It can't be a should. So if you have a goal you should save money, I would highly recommend you give it up. Because we just don't do well with shoulds. It's like the constant diet, right? I should lose weight, I should exercise, but I don't want to, so I don't think I will, right? So you have to find something about money that really matters to you and that you have some passion for, some juice for, and that takes a little time to think about, right? So you don't want to go fast. Like, what really does matter? I mean, I'd like to be debt-free, but I notice I don't get real excited about it. There are some other aspects of money I get more excited about. So the first rule of goals is want it. Have a passion for it. And then the second is to really be, you probably know the SMART acronym, the SMART goal acronym. You guys know that one? No? Okay. Well, another acronym. I'm the acronym queen today. SMART stands for specific, measurable, achievable, realistic or relevant, and time-bound. So specific would be, you wouldn't say, I want more money in my life. That wouldn't be very specific. I want to save $500 by September 1st. Would be specific, measurable. Only you would know whether that's achievable. In other words, your budget would allow for it. Relevant means that you really care about that. I want to see that $500 in my account for XYZ. And then time bound, I said September 1st. So when you're setting a money goal, make sure it's a SMART goal. It has all those specifics in it. And that's a way of empowering yourself to set a goal. Now, are any of you afraid if you set a goal, you won't achieve it?
Yeah, if I set too high of a goal.
So sometimes you put it too big for you, right? Okay. What other kinds of things keep you from, like, having that not be successful? So one is you don't care enough about it. Another one is too high. Okay. Okay, so you write it and kind of forget about it. Or you write it and you check the box, I set a goal, and then September comes along and you go, what was I doing again? Right? So we forget to pay attention to it. And I don't mean vigilant, because sometimes you can just make yourself crazy, but making an action step, once you've set the goal, what's one action step you could take? Those baby steps. And when that one's complete, what's another action step you could take? And then what's another action step you could take? So avoid all or nothing thinking, because that will sabotage you. So if you go, I got to do it all, and I got to do it by then, and then it fails. What happens when we fail at a goal? Okay. So the next time we're a little bit hesitant to set a goal, and then the time after that. And so then we get weak muscles on goal setting, because we've sort of weakened and put ourselves more in the drama triangle as opposed to the creator. So I always suggest that people set a goal that can be almost immediately successful. So I'm doing some coaching at the homeless shelter right now, and those folks are starting at ground zero, right? And we were discussing this yesterday, and I said, well, what's your savings goal? And of course everybody went, I'm going to save all my money, right? Because while I'm at the shelter, I've got housing and I've got food provided, and it's a good time to save. Now that's all or nothing thinking, and that sets you up to fail, right? So I said, you know what? It would even be empowering to start with $2 a week, then to say $100 a week, and don't reach it in the first week, don't reach it in the second week, don't reach it. Do you see what I'm saying? So you want your goal, you want the first goal you set around money to be one you absolutely know you can succeed at. So the next time you're empowered to do it much more easily. Does that make sense? Right? So you take something small and you go, yeah, I made it. And then another something small and another something small. And that will help you feel that inner state of, I can do this, I'm good at this, I'm great with money, right? Not as an affirmation, I'm great with money, no I'm not. I'm great with money, no I'm not. I'm great, that sort of fake. Great with money means you've taken on something and you've achieved it, and that feels really good. I'll tell you a little story. I was in sales for a long time, and I worked for a big computer company in sales, and of course we had quotas. And at the time, quotas were given out at the first of the year. So they didn't change if you started meeting your quota in January, those weren't the days where they said, oh, well, you're doing this must be too easy for you, so we're gonna up your quota. And so we got our quota number, both a monetary number and a number of systems that we were supposed to sell at the beginning of the year. And when I first started my career in sales, I had a really good mentor. And he said, as soon as you get your quota for the year, memorize what it is, write it down in your date book, and then put it in your desk drawer and lock it. Now, the reason he gave me that advice was because I started worrying as soon as I saw the piece of paper. Because I was very new in sales, I didn't know how easy or hard it was going to be, right? I had nothing to go on. But I had it in the top of my mind, but I didn't look at it every day. And every time, I happened to work for the kind of a company who really wanted the customer to be happy. So it wasn't sell or die, it was solution selling for the customer, right? So I would be able to find those solutions, and I'd be thinking about those solutions, and at the same time, I'd have that just in the back, on the back burner. I never missed my quota for the 7 years I was in sales for that organization. I didn't lose any sleep over it, and I always got to go to the reward club. So they had a reward at the end of the year. If you made your number, you got to go to Florida or the Bahamas or somewhere. And I always got to go. And I knew people who would fuss with it month after month after month after month, and they'd miss it every year, even though they were very good salespeople. So one of the tricks about money is knowing what it is and not worrying about it. So you have your focus, but you put it on the back burner. It's kind of like those ideas you get in the shower, right? You're not thinking about it. All of a sudden you're like, oh, I could do this. And you're like, oh, that feels great. That's so empowering, because you weren't worried about it, versus the middle of the night syndrome. That's different than the shower syndrome. The middle of the night syndrome is you wake up, what am I going to do about this? If you're younger, that's not happening to you yet, but look, you can look forward to that later on. Hopefully you're not waking up in the middle of the night. I never woke up in the middle of the night till the last 10 years, but where you have something on your mind and you're working it. And that's not the way to be successful with money, to have it on your mind all the time. The way to work it is to have a goal, have some action steps, and have some accountability. So now coaches, that's one of the roles we play, is we help people be accountable for their goal in a nice way. What other ways do you guys work with keeping yourself accountable? How do you do it? I can learn from you.
Telling someone else.
You tell someone else? Like who? Your husband? Does that work for you? Because if I told my husband, that wouldn't work for me.
He does it in a way that's not criticizing.
Oh, good. Good job. Your picker was working when you found him. Now, my husband, if I tell him, he's on me every day. Did you do that? Did you do that? And he thinks that he's helping me because I shared it with him. And I'm unable to convince him that it's not helping. So sharing it with another person that you have good trust with is a good way to go. What's another way to build accountability? Or that you use to build accountability? How do you do it?
If I don't know if this counts, but usually if I have to pay bills, I try and set up as many of them as I can for like an auto pay.
Oh, that's great. So you don't have to do it.
No. And then I also have, a separate account for what I can spend. I set up a specific separate account so that I could,
So you know what the
yeah.
spending is versus the bill paying. Okay, great. So the wonderful thing about technology is there's all kinds of things that technology can support you. Auto pay is one of them. A lot of the budget planning that we used to do on forms, I notice you can get all those online now. You just type in budget tracking or spending plan, and you'll get 5 forms, 10 forms. Google will show you. to do online tools. So that's a good way to do it, right? And separating those two, because sometimes if the spending money's in the bill paying money, what happens?
Spend too much.
None left for the bills. Uh-oh. Right, so that's a good one. How else? Accountability is the tricky part of financial empowerment. Because if we don't hold ourselves accountable, then we never get to feel that real empowered success at the end, right? We sort of rob ourselves. But at the same time, accountability is associated sometimes parentally with not pleasant associations, like somebody asking you, did you do it? Doesn't feel empowering. So you have to be artful about accountability and finding a way to hold yourself accountable that doesn't discourage you and doesn't let you get away with something, right? And that's really a balancing point. All right, what questions do you have for me, or what would you like to know that I didn't talk about?
The key word for this video is smart.
How do we boost our self-esteem about talking about money?
Oh, what a great question. Could you give me an example of?
When someone's in debt or doesn't have a lot of money, sometimes they'll feel poor against other people
Oh, okay,
when
good.
they really are doing very well, but they just feel that their self-esteem is shot.
Uh-huh. Good, very good question. So, anybody want to, what's your name?
Amanda.
Amanda. Anybody want to help Amanda out? You're going to rely on me, right? I have to do all the work? Gosh. Okay. So money and self-esteem are really tied closely together, aren't they? And comparison is the trap. So when we look at ourselves versus another person, we either feel less than or greater than. And neither one of those work out really well, right? So a way to boost, the first way to boost is never compare, right? Everybody's life is so unique and everybody's circumstances are so unique. I know people who have very little income who live very well on their income. And I know people who have a lot of income who don't live very well on their income. They're always living above their means, right? So knowing that it's not the number, it's really the feeling you have towards it, right? But comparing ourselves to anyone is a trap. So it's something to kind of try to avoid or find that it's not useful because there's really no way to ever do it realistically because everyone's life is so different. The other thing that you can boost your self-esteem is to notice that how we think has something to do with how we feel, right? Now, thoughts, the way we work with our thoughts is we often believe our own thoughts. There's a bumper sticker right now that says, don't believe everything you think. So I'll give you a weird example of that. I was meeting with a colleague. We were scheduled to meet for lunch in the Bay Area, and we set up to meet at a restaurant called Bennigan's, which is like a Fridays kind of place, and at a certain time. And I got there early, as I usually do, and I'm waiting, and she doesn't come, and she doesn't come. And I'm looking at my watch, and I'm, looking at my phone, and so I go through stages, worried, something happened to her, ticked off because I'm waiting and she's not there, right? So you go from worried to upset so I finally said to the waitress, hey, is there another Bennigan's in this area? I might be at the wrong Bennigan's. And she looked at me very, very confused and said, you're not at Bennigan's, you're at Chili's. And I see and I, arrogant that I am, I looked at her and I said, are you sure? So there's Chili's on the menu. There's a big chili on the door. There's music in the background, baby back, baby back, baby back. I didn't see it because I was convinced with my thoughts that I was at Bennigan's. So when we convince ourselves of something, that's what we see. We always say perception is reality, like that small thing. That's a huge thing. If we're looking at the desert and that we know that's a mirage, and we say to someone, that's not water, that's a mirage. No, that's water, right? So one of the things about thoughts about money is you can convince yourself of anything. So you boost your self-esteem by knowing thoughts are not real. Thoughts are things that just go around and around, and you don't have to buy it. So if you're thinking, I feel poor, or I feel less than, or you know someone who is thinking that, one of the things you can help them with is not to get too carried away with their thinking. Because thinking is sort of illusionary, right? And that will help them to know. Now, there's all sorts of other things you can do to build self-esteem, but really around money, it's how we think about money that has more to do with it than any other single factor. Which is why I started with this empowerment and the triangles and the survey for you, is you really need to identify what makes you feel good about money and what makes you feel bad about money, so you can boost that confidence that you have. Money is sort of energy, right? It's paper, coins, and energy. And if we can work with that, rather than ourselves, something wrong with me, I don't have enough, that kind of thinking will take you out. Now, there's of course strategic things we can do too. How do we increase income? You know, what are some good ways to work with money that produces more money, right? There are those things too, but that's a really great question. Yeah, Kathy.
Could you talk about wanting something versus needing something? You talked about the purse, for instance.
Yes, I did need this purse. What do you mean?
The purse, or,
Yeah.
still trick that
Yeah.
I've been using is, you see that, and then you just give it 24 hours, because unless it's one of those sentences, so I'm gonna be like 1 hour, like Friday, that the want need issue.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point. Although I have to admit, I'm not the best person at discerning those two, because I think every need is a want, every want is a need, and that's just the way it is. But I noticed with internet shopping, for instance, where I live 60 some miles from here, so I can avoid stores because it's a trip in the car and gas and effort. But if I'm on the internet, that's like instantaneous buying, right? So a want and a need. A want is obviously something discretionary. You're not going to live or die around a new purse, right? You're not going to get yourself in trouble whether you have the purse or not. A need is like your rent, your car payments, where you've made a commitment, you've made a financial commitment or decision already to pay something back. And those are things that sustain your life. Your housing sustains your life. Your car lets you get to work. Your health care costs help to protect you. And help you stay healthy. And you have to be able to know, is it a want or is it a need? So one of the little tricks you could do before, if you have any doubt, stop, right? So you've got your bill pay set up, so you already know those are things that have to be taken care of, right? Those are needs. The discretionary little bit you have over here, that spending plan, that's in the want category. And you can look at it. But if you have any doubt, stop, pause. Kathy said wait overnight. I can pause for about 5 minutes and ask myself the question. Sometimes we buy things we don't even want, right? Depending on your relationship to money and how you feel about it. If it's one of your stress relievers, like some people eat chocolate, other people go shopping. If you're in the shopping group, you don't even necessarily want it. You just find yourself buying it. Anybody ever done that? Right. Now, I did want this purse because I really fell in love with the color, and I was so pleased because I was at Target, and it was a very modest amount of money at Target. If I'd been at Macy's, it would have been, a factor 10 times more money, and I thought, I can have this beautiful pink coral purse. It's behind you if anyone wants to check it out on the way out, for a very modest sum. And I was so excited for those two reasons. I got the purse, and it was not very expensive. But I'd been looking at Macy's for the same color, and they were like $300 and $400. The other thing to know is what your threshold is. A lot of people will spend $50 without thinking about it, but $100 will stop them. But they don't realize they just bought 10 $50 items. Right? And I know that about myself. I have a threshold. There's a certain amount where I won't even consider it. It just seems too expensive. Whether I can afford it or not isn't even the issue. I just think it's ridiculous that they're charging that kind of money, right? But I'll buy a lot of incrementals that'll go over that number without noticing it because it doesn't hit my threshold. So if you know your threshold for discretionary spending, how much for dinner feels comfortable when you go out? How much for a new piece of clothing for the spring? Or How much for recreation, movies? And of course, we could say you do that through your budget plan by having a budget. But I find if you ask yourself, is it a want or a need, wait 5 minutes. Breathe while you're waiting. Sometimes walking away, like from that department, walk away. So get it out of your eye view. You'll come back to yourself. It's like, oh, I had that little temporary amnesia there. Craziness for a moment. I thought I wanted that. You play little tricks with yourself.
Or bring your husband with you. They totally
Yeah,
go.
I never bring my husband shopping. Are you kidding me? I never get anything. Because he's not a shopper. He doesn't like shopping. He's not tempted to shop. Not his problem. He'll do fishing rods for $450, but he says, but I only buy one. I'm like, yeah, but I could have bought 10 or something for that. What other questions do you have? Do you feel empowered? A little bit? You feel better? Feeling better is good. Yeah. I encourage you to investigate what we're going to be doing here next month on the coaching. So we're trying something new. It's a pilot here at TMCC for classified staff. We have some folks that have agreed to be the first group of participants, but check into it because I'll tell you what I found about coaching. Having another person hold your goals as importantly as you do is very empowering. We always try to do it on our own, and we always try to do it alone. If we have a spouse that helps us, that's great too. But sometimes that can, put a little heaviness on the relationship. So explore that because I think coaching is a really meaningful way and a fun way to manage this area that is sort of like a drag. So look into that, or you'll hear reports, I'm sure, from if we don't do a good job, these folks will bust us and say, oh no, you don't want to try that. Anything else? Well, I really thank you for the four of you for coming. So I was worried I was going to have to, talk to him for the whole time.
Wouldn't have been as good.
It might have been. It might have been fun. We could have put you on the spot about your money. So I'll be back. I'm doing another one of these on April 20th. On emotions and money, which is very close to what we did today, but a little different. So I will be back for the Wellness Wednesday. I'm also going to be here on the 5th for the coaching orientation. So come and find me if you have any other questions.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a great day.